Hi, I'm Pat, and that's the last time I'm going to do that hello bit in the stone hall, or whatever that's called, because it's a little loud there. It's Pulverize again, but this time we're not full bear. This time, we're abusing something. Well, abusing something is a very strong word. We're going to do this. We're going to combine Pulverize with Natural Balance, the aspect of Natural Balance, and Inner Beast. The band of Natural Balance, or aspect of Natural Balance, reads, casting a Storm skill grants your Earth skills up to 45% extra critical strike damage for 4 seconds. This would be on our amulet, except our amulet is busy being BLT. And the legendary node, Inner Beast. After shapeshifting, your spirit costs are reduced by 10 seconds, bar 5 seconds for up to 30%. I don't know why I said it that way. I'm a little sleepy. So with that, a Wolf skill, a Storm skill, which is our basic, and our Pulverize, we have a recipe for our spamming Pulverize, which is very, very nice. What does this have over the other build? Well, it has more synergy. It has Blood Howl, which gives us extra stack speed, allowing us to hit that Pulverize button as much as possible. We also have Inner Beast, which allows us to hit the Pulverize without wondering where our spirit is going to come from, because it's going to be real cheap. So this pretty much ticks off one of the boxes for a fantastic build, which is the ability to spam your primary damage ability. Look at how weird our bear looks right now. Plus, bigger crits. The downside is, well, we don't get to use several things such as Might, because we're not always going to be in Werebear form, which means we can't take advantage of the total armor on the bear form thing that we abused in the full bear farm. So we're going to have some windows where our armor isn't as high as it should be, but, you know, with the right rolls and high enough item levels, which you should have since it's easy to get level 925 items if you are running a dungeon that is at least level 90. Whether it is a vault or just a basic nightmare dungeon, you always get 925 drops. Should be defensively sound, and we have other ways of generating damage reduction now. Yeah, hey. I actually think that's it. For those of you who don't know or didn't watch the other video, 1, that is totally fine. 2, Pulverize has this weird thing where you can hit twice with one of the aspects, the one that gives you the actual wave of Pulverize, that little shock wave over there. If you just hit it where if you had an enemy right at the edge of where those tremors are starting, those little spikes from the ground, right there at the edge, you're going to hit them twice, both for the initial Pulverize and the shockwave, essentially dealing 300% damage, which is where a lot of our damage is going to come from. But since we can spam Pulverize now, we don't have to rely on that so much, although it is nice. If it happens that somebody gets close to you and you want to whack them real hard, well, you can. Now we have an additional offensive option, which is throw out a Storm Strike, which is our basic. Maybe throw in a Blood Howl, because it's always going to be off cooldown, because we are great at clearing lots of mobs, and it cooldown drops by 1 every time something dies or we kill something. And then spam away with your beautiful high crit Pulverizes that will also overpower. Now, an interesting thing is, because we're lowering our costs, there are a few things that are going to be weird. Our Ancestor's Blessing, or whatever that is, after spending 75 spirit, you gain extra 30% or 40% damage. That's great. As well as BLT, which requires you to spend 300 resource before it guarantees a crit. Now, I think that's a trade-off I'm willing to take with the build, because we have other things that will guarantee crits. And not guarantee crits, guarantee overpowers. And I think the second sentence of BLT is more important, the one that increases our critical overpower damage. That all said, this is also not a great... I guess it's never a great... I mean, it's not terrible against bosses. That's the sentence I'm trying to get to. That's where I'm getting, you know, where I'm circling back to. We're not great against bosses. We do an enormous amount of damage when we hit. The thing is, we can activate our overpowers and our ability to hit really hard really easily. We just kill things. The problem with boss fights is not a lot of things to kill, really. So we're a little hamstrung there. We have to rely on, say, BLT, Banished Lord's Talisman, to give us our overpowers. But that's neither here nor there, because the vault exists. And, you know, the vault, if you can get past those flying jerks that insta-kill you, is actually pretty great to farm. I got a lot of 925 uniques there, the ones that aren't necessarily guaranteed when you drop them from, say, Beast in the Ice, who I am growing to hate so much, because sometimes I just want to farm a weapon or an armor, and it doesn't want to give me the 925. It just gives me, oh, here's an 80. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. Point is, for the content that we have this season, it is great that, you know, builds that just are very efficient at clearing large swaths of bad guys is like a great option, a fantastic option even, because we know what's at the end, and it is not a big boss. So we can take advantage of that fact for that build. This isn't to say that this is terrible in Nightmare Vaults, standard Nightmare Vaults. It still does fine. You hit a bit of a, a speed bump if you hit a big boss. So that's it. Very tanky, lots of damage, lots of utility. You get to slam on one button over and over again, which feels real good, but not great against bosses. Full link in the description below. If you decide to leave the video right now, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, like, comment, subscribe, ring that bell, do all this nice and more. They will help me out a lot. For the rest of you, let's get into detail about the gears, aspects, Seneschal, skills, and Paragons. Yay! Alright, if you saw the full bear, pulverize, that's not the title of the video, a lot of the gear is basically the same except for a few things, so you can probably just look at the link in the description below. I don't want to waste your time. For the rest of you, we replaced our Vasilis helm with Godslayer crown. 1, it gives us a lot of extra damage. 2, cooldown reduction is nice. Crowd control duration is also nice. The extra damage nice. And the fact that it can give us a quick burst of damage every 12 seconds because it pulls in stuff and allows us to deal up to 60% increased damage to them for 3 seconds, which is all we need, really. Good news. Is this mandatory? Heck no. You can put on a helmet with basically the same stats except damage, and yeah, you just replace damage with armor or some other defensive stat, and then put on like might, and you will perform pretty much the same. The good news with this is like every 12 seconds is also weirdly one of the timers for our pulverizes, so that kind of feels good when it all lines up together. But honestly, Godslayer is not mandatory. If you don't have the time to farm stuff, I get it. That's fine. I spent a lot of time trying to farm up not even the perfect rolls, just functional rolls, and it's still not dropping for me. So I understand that like most people not gonna get like the ideal rolls. The good news is Godslayer is not mandatory. Banished Lord's Talisman, also not mandatory. Very nice though, gives you an extra source of overpower and a massive increase in critical overpower damage, but again, not mandatory. You can do fine. Well, of course, you're going to have a little bit more difficulty with it. It's out on a lot of cool stats, such as extra critical strike chance and resource generation, 2 things that are not usually found in amulets, but you can put on that thing that increases your core skill damage while you're fortified on your amulet. Call it a day. And it'll still do you very well. You might even be a little tougher because you can roll for defensive stats there, or even more spirit cost reduction to make it even easier to spam your pulverizes. Honestly, also not mandatory. Insatiable Fury though, you're not. It's really good. Like it gives you a lot of extra armor and the free ranks to werebear skills. Look, arguably. Also not mandatory. Pay no attention to the fact that I only have 1 slot on it. I am short on the things that give us sockets. I don't know how that happened, but I am. No, seriously, again, Insatiable Fury will help you take it to another level, gives you a lot of extra overpower damage, physical damage, and damage reduction while fortified. But again, while fantastic, hardly mandatory if you want to get the build off as soon as possible. You know why? Because, well, you get overpower while in werebear form or for werebear skills anyway on a legendary chest. So you can get similar rolls for this, maybe even more damage reduction, and you can put on another defensive stat. So you might even feel more comfortable farming with it before you go like full damage. And that's fine. That's amazing, right? So these 3 are in the build, but they are not strictly mandatory. You can handle 90s, 95s with legendaries. So, that's great. Okay, now for, well, a bunch of legendaries. Ursine Horror on your gloves, of course, for the turning Pulverize into an Earth skill allows us to access a lot of Earth skill critical strike damage bonuses and basically get twice the critical strike damage on our on our Paragon nodes, which is nice. And I'd actually suggest some like attack speed on it. We don't have spirit problems. Like I'd replace the willpower with attack speed on the gloves that I have, because now we can spam it and we need attack speed for that. For our boots, again, I like quicksand. I like the aspect of quicksand. Yes, it's a slow. Yeah, you kind of care about it to control the field a little bit, but the fact that you can control the field a little bit, is not the most important part. The most important part is that a lot of our stuff is utterly reliant on things being crowd controlled. Yet another point against our war against big bosses, but what you're gonna do, Isaac heads off fish. But we do have an efficient way of applying stun to things, but I want to be more efficient. Like, we're just squeezing efficiency with these boots, because our stun does not only procs after like hitting 15, 25 people first with a werebear skill, and that's super easy with a bunch of mobs, but you're not always going to get that all the time. But the slow is always going to apply, and when you always apply it, you apply your big damage sooner, which means you can kill things just a little bit faster. Now, there's also other things you can put on here. The one that gives you +2 to all earth skills while you're fortified is very nice as well. Just a little more buff for your Pulverize. You can add a movement skill here, but this is just the one that I think ekes out more damage. Anyway, for our pants, we're no longer looking at might because, well, we're not in werebear form all the time. Well, we're gonna be in werebear form like super a lot, like we're fighting, right? If you're not in werebear form, you're not casting trample or pulverize, and you really shouldn't be in a fight. If you're not casting Pulverize, like, what are you doing? Like, leave the situation, start dodging. So there is an argument for putting on Might instead of Juggernaut, because when you turn into a werebear, your armor is going to be up in the 21,000s, which is way too much armor, honestly. However, this means, with Juggernaut, this means that we have 13,500 armor even when we're not in werebear form, which means that even when we're buffing ourselves up, we're not going to get, you know, randomly one-shot by something off-screen or something that we didn't notice. So that, I feel, that comfort, that safety is very important, especially if this season's special event, special dungeon, also requires us to not die during it. So, you know, there it is. We replaced the Grizzly Rage aspect. Yeah, that's the one that adds 5 seconds to it, increases your critical strike damage with Band of Natural Balance to start playing around with shape-shifting and giving us even more critical strike damage for 4 seconds. While it does not cap out at like 200% like the other thing, this does apply more consistently and gives us a way to, you know, play with other skills as well, which adds more synergies. Realm Might Ring stays. After hitting 15 enemies with your werebear skills, your next werebear skill will deal extra 50% damage and stun enemies for 2 seconds. This is like our secondary form of, well, no, this is a primary form of hard CC. The other one is soft CC just to activate our damage and keep us a little safe. This one's hard CC. Like 2 seconds stun is pretty big. Anyway, and of course the aspect of Shockwave, or Shockwave aspect on our two-hander for the up to 200% extra damage, as well as the Shockwave effect. Yay! You know what? I'm gonna rant about this once. For the Seneschal, I feel like this is a wasted... Like, there's so much potential wasted in the Seneschal. We could do so much with this, and yet it boiled down to Flash of Adrenaline, tactical support, one of the unique stones, and duration support. That's just almost ultimately the best setup for most things. It's just, what else do you put on your Tempest? The thing that shoots the most. Well, for here, it's Arcing Resource for the extra resource, just so, you know, I don't want to run out of resource, even though we don't run out of it a lot. And Poison to apply poison, because we have Envenom, which increases our critical strike damage. Now, arguably, if you're not having problems with resource generation because of, you know, all our options, you can replace resource support with Safeguard for even more safety, or even breaking support to get rid of frustrating little barriers, or try to give yourself a bigger shot against the Butcher, which this does not do super well against. I have a feeling that Rabies might do well against the Butcher though. Anyway, yeah, that's my rant. That's my problem with this Seneschal. It had so much potential, didn't it? Anyway. Okay, time for Spirit Boons. Well, it's wariness for the first one for the reduced damage from elites, and Iron Feather and Avian Wrath for the second two for the critical strike damage, as well as maximum life to improve our overpowers. Now, if your crit's looking a little low, Scythe Talons is also a good replacement for Iron Feather, but, you know, get your crits up there. For our third row, it's a little weird. We don't have an ult. Our Fortify is pretty consistent, so we don't need Bolster, and we don't have Companion, so it's Energize for the lucky hit chance to restore 10 spirit, which is fine. And for the last part, Obsidian Slam. Every 20th kill will cause your next Earth skill to overpower. Now, what do we do if we're fighting a boss and, you know, we don't have anything to kill for our overpowers? Well, I guess it's masochistic. It's something. Okie dokie, time for skill stat. Pay the bills. 2 points into Wind Shear. You don't even technically need enhanced Wind Shear because we have exploit and stuff, but I guess it's nice because you're not going to really rely on your Wind Shear to like do damage, to like apply vulnerable, but it's nice. We don't need Wild Wind Shear for the extra spirit because we have a lot of spirit reduction, and we just don't need the spirit production from this because of the way we built our stuff. Maybe you want the movement speed, but I feel like that point is better spent somewhere else. 1 point into Heart of the Wild, 3 into Wild Impulses for the extra damage, of course. Predatory Instinct for the extra crit strike against close enemies. Although, since we're not, married to the idea of that, I'm not against removing 2 and, putting that elsewhere. I don't know why the skills do that whenever you spend or remove stuff, but whatever. 50 points into Iron Fur. Even though we're not permanently in Werebear form as we are in the other build, this build, the Iron Fur does last for 50 seconds after leaving Werebear form, and more likely than not, you're going to be casting at least 1 Pulverize every 50 seconds. Also, Pulverize. Yeah, that's a lot of numbers. Anyway, into Enhanced Pulverize, which is, it's really sad that we need 12 seconds of being healthy, but I guess that's also how the Necromancer works for it. It also needs to be healthy to activate some stuff. But Primal Pulverize for the reduced damage to keep you alive more. Now, Raging Pulverize is fine, but we have a lot of things that stun anyway, and because things that are hard CC'd break out of hard CC and become unstoppable for a bit to keep us from just locking the game down. This doesn't really work well with one of our aspects, so we'll just leave it at Primal Pulverize for the extra safety. You've seen it, you loved it. It's Earthen Bulwark into Preserving Earthen Bulwark, because that's all we need that for. Like every build has this. I think even Wolf builds had this, but I have my eye on Ray Beast. But the skill. The thing, not the sickness. The sickness is horrifying. 1 point to Ancestral Fortitude because it's really easy to cap out our resistances, and Vigilance, of course, because now we have 3 defensive skills. Look at that. The other one is Debilitating Roar, which kind of has a long cooldown, but it does heal you for, how long does this last? Like 4 seconds. It heals you for like 4, 8, 12, 16% of your life, which is not bad for something that doesn't cost you anything technically. And the Fortify is nice too. And Blood Howl also gives you a heal of 20% of your maximum life, and we have a lot of maximum life. Although you can put stats into this, I do not recommend it. We don't really need it for that much. The fact that kills reduce the cooldown of Blood Howl by 1 second, really, 1, you can spam it. 2, it really synergizes with our build's desire to wipe out entire mobs like Sauron at the start of Lord of the Rings. And I wondered preserving Blood Howl for the extra attack speed rather than innate Blood Howl, because we don't have spirit problems, really. So Blood Howl is like the attack speed. On the other hand, we can take advantage of our time-based things, such as we reduced cost of spirit on our legendary Paragon board, which is like 5 seconds long, as well as our bonus to critical strike damage for 4 seconds. So great combo. Works out. Also, because it's 2 shape-shifting skills, we move back and forth between our forms, we end up activating that legendary Paragon node, which we'll be talking about in the Paragon section. Anyway, bye companions. Straight on to, wow, these are RAF skills? Really? Anyway, I decided to put points into Provocation. While we are not permanently in Werebear form, I like the idea. I like the thought of having another source of overpower, which is very nice just for the consistent damage. Although if you want more defense, just take that out. Put it here. Put it into Heightened Senses. Whenever we shapeshift, we gain 12% damage reduction against elites, which is pretty good. But I prefer the offense. Defense, while I appear to be obsessed about it, is not the top of the game. The top of the game is offense. The faster you can clear, the safer you'll be. Until we are given opponents that take way too long and we need to stun and run, offense is going to be the name of the game. If we cannot wipe them out in a timely manner, then defense is going to matter a lot more. Anyway, Trample into Savage Trample for the 40 Spirit, which is absurd. 1 point to Neurotoxin, haha, into Envenom, haha. You and your companions gain 30% bonus critical strike damage against poison enemies. Poison is almost mandatory, and it is why our Seneschal is set up the way it is. We have ways of applying poison through Poison Creeper, but it's not efficient. And it eats up a whole slot but doesn't really synergize with the rest of what we're doing, so I don't like it. There's also that legendary Paragon thing that also gives us the ability to randomly immobilize and poison things, but I'm not a fan of that either, simply because our Paragon nodes are really, really tight if you really want to maximize your damage. Anyway, 3 points into Crushing Earth for the extra damage against slowed, stunned, immobilized, and knocked back enemies. 3 points into Stone Guard for the Fortify bonus damage. Well, extra damage while you are fortified. And Safeguard, critical strikes with Earth skills fortify you for 4% base life. This is one of the reasons why we don't really need extra fortification, because we do it like naturally. We can pop into full fortify at full health really easily. 3 points into Defiance for the extra damage, rather, to elites, and Natural Disaster for the extra damage against vulnerable enemies, of which there will be a lot. Although we don't vulnerable a lot of things, we don't really need that against big targets, and with the vaults being the optimal way to do things rather than nightmare dungeons themselves, it feels like it's fine not having a perma way to apply vulnerable. Oh, and of course we pick up Ursine Strength for the maximum life, as well as extra damage and increased overpower damage. Okay, for our people who saw the other build, the full bear pulverized build, sorry, my brain hiccuped for a second there. This is going to look real familiar with a few key changes. Werebear at the first for the extra damage while in Werebear form, though we don't want to maximize that necessarily. There's a lot more to be gained from other places. We just want the damage reduction while in Werebear form. Now, that's not always going to be online, unfortunately. However, it is still very much worth it, because most of the time we'll be in combat. We'll be in Werebear form, because if we're not throwing out Pulverizes, we're not supposed to be in combat. We're supposed to be prepping stuff or buffing ourselves, and you don't really want to start buffing yourself in the middle of combat. Try to clear the field before you start doing that. Head on straight up to Earth and Devastation, of course, to pick up Earth and Devastation. We're not going to max this bonus out because I needed to give up some points so that I could build it in for more damage elsewhere. I know. Anyway, Earth and Sky here for the extra bonuses to magic nodes, which include critical strike with Earth skills. Gave up on the intelligence, haha. Should fill in your jokes here, but I did keep the resistances because I do want them. Also, we need them to fill out the entire thing, you know. We go on straight to the right. Pick up Oppress, just the extra critical strike damage, as well as crowd control damage. Pick up Ancestral Guidance, where we will plunk down Exploit. Now here, I did not pick up Reclamation. We don't need Reclamation as much since we are going to lower our spirit costs drastically thanks to Inner Beast, but that's for a little bit. Yeah, Exploit, don't really need to max that out. We don't want the vulnerable damage so much. It is nice, but we're here for the ability to turn things vulnerable. I still picked up the extra core damage though, of course. Go on straight to the right for Inner Beast, where it turns into a bit of a mess, where you pick up Inner Beast. After shapeshifting, your spirit costs are reduced by 10% for 5 seconds up to 30%, which is nice because we do shapeshift a lot because we have both wolf, human, and bear skills. And by both, I mean all. The human lets you shift into bear or wolf, and you can shift from bear to wolf or wolf to bear, etc. And you can stack up the cost reduction, which really makes it easy to just start spamming Pulverize, rather, which is nice. I had to juggle to get the max value for this, and it is nice, plus 427% overpower damage. Also, increasing the damage that people take from you, thanks to Dominate the Glyph. Also made an effort to get Shapeshifter. I wanted that 20% extra damage, although if you're not a fan of that, you can shuffle that point around. We go on back to Ancestral Guidance, then go down to Constricting Tendrils. We will not be picking Constricting Tendrils, even though it seems nice on paper. It is a low chance to critically hit to possibly activate our poison bonuses, such as Envenom, whereas our Seneschal can do that basically for free. So, put on Spirit, max it out, that's your critical strike damage. Go on to the right, Heightened Malice, put on Tectonic, try to max that out for the extra, well, critical strike damage. Also lucky hit chance, but that's nice too. Okay, that's it. If you enjoyed the video, send me your energy in the comments. I want a 925 Great Staff for the Crone for very, very dumb reasons. Also, like, comment, subscribe, ring that bell, do all those nice things and more. If you enjoyed the video, I am Patinator. And if you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. I'll try to get back to you as soon as humanly possible. Yeah, that's the extra. I am Patinator, and I will see you later.